Garrett Moskowitz doing two things at once. He trolled Jim Jordan with visual receipts, and he forced the committee to have a real conversation about what happens when hateful ideas don't just march in the streets, they trend on a screen. It's funny, sure, but the laugh is a doorway to a much more serious argument about power, speech, and public safety in the information age.
First full committee hearing, the gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, when I got to Congress, I wanted to be on the Judiciary Committee, but I was placed in purgatory with Comer. And I was worried about all the stuff that I was going to be missing in Judiciary. Chairman Jordan started today the hearing. He said, what a difference 4 years makes. Well, apparently not, because today is Groundhog Day. So I just want to thank the chairman. He knew I had FOMO, missing out on all these hearings. And so I brought pictures of the chairman doing this hearing. So here's one picture from March 9th, 2023, he did this hearing. Then on March 30th, he did the hearing again, 2023.
Different tie. Tie.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Mr. Chairman. Here's one from July 20th, doing the same hearing. November 30th, same hearing. Okay, February 6th, the same hearing. There's so many more. April 11th, identical hearing. And finally, May 1st, the same hearing. So by the way, anyone keeping score, the chairman wore a red tie, 4 of those hearings, a yellow tie 3 times. But today, at the 8th hearing, we are even now. Today is yellow tie day, so 4 yellow ties, 4 red ties. I tried to match you, Mr. Chairman, but mine's a little more gold. I will work on the hue, but it is the golden age. The golden age. But at least I now know what to get the chairman.
The gentleman yield?
For Christmas. Well, I'll yield in a second.
Okay.
But Mr. Chairman, don't let Comer out-Comer you. I mean, James is out there comering around with new falsehoods, and we're doing a hearing that we've done 8 times. If you need some ideas, we got some. I mean, I feel bad for the ranking member. I mean, ranking member Raskin came all the way over here from Oversight. We had a vote. In fact, several of us came over here from Oversight. So if you need some ideas from us, we'll gladly assist. But look, we're doing free speech, okay? So since we're doing free speech and censorship, I want to talk about a former friend of this committee and winner of the Nazi of the Month Club, Kanye West. And while there are no eggs on the shelf, there is definitely egg on your face. Last week, there were endless amounts of Nazi tweets by Kanye West. I'm going to read some of them. I love Hitler. I'm a Nazi. Jews were better as slaves. Hitler was so fresh. I can say Hitler as much as I want. It went on for days. If that wasn't enough, he ran a commercial during the Super Bowl, directing people to his website. And the only thing the website was selling was a shirt with a swastika. So the marketplace of ideas. They say, oh, Jared, but it's the marketplace of ideas. Well, as we mainstream Nazis, what happens when Nazism becomes the marketplace? The chairman said he's worried about Europe. Maybe we should go to Europe. While we're there, maybe we should go to Auschwitz to see what happens when you mainstream Nazis. Mr. Schellenberger would say, but Jared, free speech is absolute. Don't be a censor. But actually, Kanye accidentally disproved that idea. He proved that free speech is not absolute. You see, what happened was he started posting porn on X. And then all of a sudden, the conservative free speech masters of the universe were outraged. Elon unfollowed him and then labeled Kanye's account. So imagine if Kanye had only posted Nazi porn. Well, Mr. Schellenberger and other conservatives would be saying, well, the Nazi part is okay, as long as they keep their clothes on. So remember, if you're a Nazi, just keep your SS uniform on. Don't take it off, because that's when we're going to get to censorship. And so, look, you know, this is a hearing about free speech. My colleague from Texas said nobody blamed Biden for the cost of eggs, and he has every right to say it because it's free speech. But that is total bullshit, okay? All of my colleagues were blaming Biden from eggs. Former President Trump blamed him on October 26th before the election, blaming him for the price of eggs. So let's get some grip. Now, Mr. Chairman, I will yield to you.
Well, I was just going to ask a question. If we ask our witness, but I'll ask you since it's your time. If you're going to have 8 hearings on something, I can't think of something much better than protecting the fundamental liberty that makes this, as Ms. Subramanian said last Congress, That is the hallmark of Western civilization, the ability to debate and protect the most fundamental right we have. Because all the other rights in the First Amendment don't mean squat if you can't talk. And that's what we're defending. So we should have maybe had 9 or 10 hearings, because the First Amendment and free speech is so darn important. And I would just maybe ask Mr. Schellenberger, Mr. Teichman, you think we could have more hearings on something this important?
Well, first of all, Congressman, thank you for your advocacy for UAP disclosure. I'm glad that we agree on that one, and I'm right there with you on that all the way. I'm with the Supreme Court on this issue of Nazism, aren't you? I mean, do you disagree with the Brandenburg decision?
So the answer
and the Skokie ruling.
Reclaiming my time. I know we're over, Mr. Chairman, so I'll land the plane for you. What you're describing is a time when 2 or 3 or a dozen Nazis could march in a neighborhood. Things have changed dramatically when a Nazi with 30 or 40 or 50 million followers can build a whole platform behind being a Nazi. You don't have to listen to me, look at the data with what's going on in anti-Semitism in Europe and in this country. That's not happening because 20 Nazis marched in a community. It's happening because we're allowing it to proliferate in an online platform. And so I'd say, Mr. Chairman, you're right. Freedom of speech is super important. But you guys won the election. I've never seen a team win the game and then go out and be like, the rest. You guys won. It's over.
But do you think
we lost? Biden's back in the basement where you say he lives. You know, we're good.
But Congressman, do you really think that the founders meant for a new media technology like radio or telegraphs to change the First Amendment? I mean, they write the First Amendment and say, well, but if a future technology comes along, like the telegraph or the television, the radio, then we're going to go ahead and get rid of the First Amendment?
Well, no, we're not getting rid of it.
But why change
The
it?
gentleman has expired. We got others.
Looking forward to more.
Moskowitz starts light, counting ties, holding up pictures, pointing out the repetition of hearings. That bit of theater does 2 important jobs. First, it humanizes the moment. It lowers the temperature so people who might be turned off by purely legal argument can still follow the point. Second, it exposes a pattern. The committee has held this hearing many times, and yet the same debates keep cycling with little real reckoning about the consequences of online amplification. He uses humor as a hinge to swing from parody to principle. The principle here is straightforward but profound. The First Amendment protects speech from government censorship. That's the bedrock. But what happens when speech isn't just expressed, it's amplified at scale by platforms that function like privately owned public squares? That's what Moskowitz is driving at when he moves from Kanye West's explicit Nazi praise to the marketplace argument. Conservatives on the committee invoke the idea of an absolute marketplace of ideas. But Moskowitz points out a simple fact. When an individual or account reaches tens of millions of followers and the platform actively promotes or monetizes their reach, you no longer have a neutral marketplace. You have a broadcast system with enormous power to normalize and normalize fast. The legal backdrop matters here. The Brandenburg decision that often gets cited protects speech that advocates violence only if it is directed to inciting imminent lawless action and is likely to produce such action. That's a high bar, intentionally high, because the founders protected political speech fiercely. But Brandenburg was decided in a world before social platforms that algorithmically recommend content and enable direct monetization of outrage. The legal test is the same, but the context has changed. A single provocative post can now go from fringe to mainstream in minutes. The harms that follow, harassment, doxing, threats, real-world violence, and rising anti-Semitism or other targeted hate are measurable and serious. Moskowitz is not calling for government censorship of ideas. He's making a different case. We need accountability and common-sense rules for private platforms that aren't truly public comments but exercise public-like influence. That's exactly the approach many Democrats support. It's about transparency, who is getting amplified, what algorithms prioritize, what content moderation standards actually mean in practice, and about limiting incentives that reward sensationalism, hate, and disinformation. It's about ensuring platforms can't hide behind a black box while their systems fuel real-world harm. Let's be concrete. When a public figure with millions glorifies Nazism, the immediate harms are visible: harassment and threats against targeted communities, a spike in anti-Semitic incidents, and an emboldening of extremist actors. Over time, this normalization changes social norms and lowers the barrier for recruitment. Europe's experience, which Moskowitz alludes to, isn't an abstract warning. It's evidence that unmoderated platforms can allow hate to resurge. The difference between a dozen people marching with torches and a celebrity with platform reach is the potential scale and speed of harm. Both are dangerous, but the latter operates at a velocity our laws and norms struggle to address. A democratic perspective asks three questions at once. How do we defend free speech? How do we protect vulnerable communities? And how do we hold powerful private actors accountable? The answers aren't contradictory. They include stronger transparency requirements for recommendations and advertisements, clearer notice and takedown processes with independent auditing, protections for moderation workers, and targeted liability rules that push platforms to take responsibility for design choices that amplify harm, all while preserving robust political debate. These are the kinds of reforms defenders of the First Amendment can back because they protect the public sphere rather than handcuff it. Moskowitz's point about the marketplace of ideas being weaponized is also a civic lesson. For decades, conservatives painted big tech regulation as censorship. But when the public can plainly see a pattern, toxic content gets engagement, engagement drives ad revenue, revenue incentivizes more toxic content. The argument that platforms are neutral marketplaces loses force. Demand-side solutions like media literacy and civic education are vital, but they're complements, not substitutes, for structural reform.